The Jets have swung with a big trade for a tackle. We've got more from the first official day of the 2024 league season coming up right here on a Wednesday edition of Football with Faria.
It's time for Football with Faria.
You got to get the offense right, and you got to be able to be aggressive. They put up 14 against the secondary. That is driving me up a freaking wall right now.
Now here's your host, Nick Faria.
Alrighty, welcome inside Football with Faria, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you guys coming on for the first time, thank you for joining. Like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you guys want to call in as well, I think I have it up. Any comment or question you guys have, just post it in the chat here. We'll try to answer all of your questions. But a big day today. First official day of the new league year. The NFL season, the 2024 NFL season is officially underway. We had a couple of free agent signings late last night. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is back in Philadelphia. Patrick Queen going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was a stunner. But the Jets, and they really have done everything they've needed to do to this point. And I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me. For those of you that are jumping on, a lot of people aren't going to agree with me. But what exactly has Joe Douglas done wrong in this instance? What exactly have they been doing wrong? They have signed a starting left guard, John Simpson, a pretty solid one. Nothing's gonna, change how things are looking right there with Simpson. He's a quality guard, probably an upgrade over Laken Tomlinson. But then they trade for Morgan Moses. Right tackle for the Baltimore Ravens. Pro Football Focus graded him one of the best right tackles in football last season. And yes, he dealt with some injuries. Yes, he's 33 years old. But that's a pretty damn good trade. And if there's one thing we have seen with Joe Douglas, and he really takes this off of Howie Roseman, is he knows how to make trades, man. He knows how to trade. And it's pretty damn awesome when you think about it. You get a tackle like Morgan Moses in the final year of his deal. Cap hit's right around $7 million. You trade for a tackle like that, the expectation is you're probably going to have to give up a fourth or maybe even a third-round pick. And the Jets, they gave one up, but it was a pick swap. They essentially gave nothing up for a quality starting right tackle in the game. That's a terrific trade. It's a terrific move. It's not a good move. It's a terrific move. That's the kind of trade you look at and say, he's not the best GM. He's got to make sure the free agents hit. He's got to make sure the draft gets nailed. But that's a damn good trade. That is absolutely fantastic. And for those of you guys jumping on, we'll try to answer all of your questions. And I know some of you are already pointing out what's going on with the DJ Reed tweet. What's going on with Jermaine Johnson? I haven't seen the DJ Reed tweet. I know that Jermaine Johnson is sort of trying to tease everyone right now. Going to be interesting to see. I'm looking up Reed's tweet. I'm looking up and seeing what Jermaine Johnson is. And guys, remember something. These players know what's going on within the organization. They know what they're trying to do. And New York, for all intents and purposes, the only real thing they need to do now, this is why trading for Morgan Moses was so important. Bringing in John Simpson was so important. The only real need is that wide receiver. That's the only thing. Because if you look at the trajectory of the Jets' offensive line, everyone wants Tyron Smith. People want David Bakhtiari. You want some additional depth. And that's something that I think New York will be addressing. You still have Wes Schweitzer under contract. That's going to help you. But you want a backup tackle. You want a guy that can move in to play guard. That's all understandable. That can be done in a month or two or even after the NFL draft. Not everyone gets signed before the NFL draft. Remember that. But now this is about getting a receiver. And this is the one thing that I was hammering home with you guys that are jumping on from the Jake Gasman show. Be patient. And you guys get angry whenever someone tells you to be patient. But the reality is, teams do not win championships on 2 days of free agency. That's not what happens. The Jets missed out on Michael Onwenu. Sucks. Patriots got him back. It's a re-sign. You can't blame and fault the Jets for not getting Onwenu. Everyone who comes to me and complains about what the Jets are doing, my basic question back is, what do you want them to do? Who do you want the Jets to sign? And if you look at it, which right tackle in free agency is better than Morgan Moses? The answer to that is nobody. Moses is an excellent trade. And then the question is, well, who's better than John Simpson? Well, Robert Hunt. You had Onwenu. Trying to think of who else. You have Dotson, Jackson. But then my follow-up to that, to all the guards that were signed before the Jets brought in Simpson, is, do you want to pay your guard $15 to $20 million? You're not the Eagles, where all of your cap is situated in a perfect situation where all your starters are making bank and no one's getting a massive deal in 2024. That's not the case. So are you willing to spend just a horrific amount of money on a guard? No, that's not how it should be built. That's not how teams should be built. That's why John Simpson, for essentially $6 to $7 million, that is a fantastic deal based on his overall talent, based on what he's going to be asked to do. And that's why there has to be some excitement when it comes to the Jets. That's why there has to be some swagger coming through, because the defense already is good. They're situated nicely. They need another safety, but your corners are signed. Your linebackers are signed. Your pass rush is still there. You added on the defensive tackle. All these things are great. On offense, you have your center. You have your right guard. Now, AVT no longer has to play right tackle, furthering the point of how important the Morgan Moses trade is. And again, guys, the thing that blows my mind about it, you traded for a Pro Bowl caliber player. I understand he hasn't been to a Pro Bowl, but you traded for a Pro Bowl caliber player in Morgan Moses. And you gave up a 6th round pick for him. That's essentially what it cost. It's a 4th round pick swap and a conditional 6th round pick. That is absolutely terrific. This move most GMs can't make. You have to give Joe Douglas that credit. This offensive line looks completely different. The outlook looks completely different because, I'm going to get to this in a little bit, but if you look at the NFL draft and you look at what the Jets could do at the NFL draft, Joe Alt, Olufashanu, people keep saying, oh, Alt's not going to fall to the Jets at 10. And I continue to say this point. We know, based on reports that I am hearing and based on reports that everyone and every other draft analyst is saying, at least 4 quarterbacks are going in the top 10. Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels are all being selected in the top 10. We know that 3 wide receivers are going in the top 10. Marvin Harrison, Romeo Odunze, and Malik Neighbors. The order obviously remains to be seen. Harrison could go before the 4th quarterback. Neighbors could go at 5, whatever it is. But there's 7 players we know that are going to be selected. Do the math. Do the math, guys. If the Bears are taking Caleb at 1, and the Commanders take Drake May at 2, and the Patriots take Jaden Daniels at 3, and the Cardinals take Marvin Harrison at 4, the Chargers already have lost Williams, the receiver. The Giants could take J.J. McCarthy. They could take Romeo Dunze, or they could trade out for a team that trades up for J.J. McCarthy. But let's say the Giants take McCarthy. The Titans have a choice between tackle and wide receiver. And by all real reports, the Titans need weapons. They want weapons. Romeo Dunze would probably be the selection. And if Romeo Dunze is the selection at 7, the Atlanta Falcons, who have a top 10 offensive line, are not taking a tackle. They're probably going defense, whether it be Dallas Turner, whether it be a corner. And now Joe Alt is there at 9. The Bears are not going to take a tackle. But if the Jets were worried about another team jumping them, you trade a first, a fourth to 9, and you move past it. Like, if you guys do the math, if you guys really do the math, Joe Alt can be available for the Jets with the 10th overall pick. Just do the math. And we do have breaking news. Calvin Ridley signing a 4-year, $92 million deal with the Tennessee Titans. Very interesting. Calvin Ridley signing with the Titans, 4 years, $92 million, $50 million guaranteed. Everyone was angry about Joe Douglas trying to get a receiver and him needing to respond. Do you want to pay Calvin Ridley 4 years, $92 million? The answer to that is an emphatic no. The good thing for the Jets is that he didn't go to the Patriots. He's staying in the AFC South. The Jaguars are a little bit worse. And of course, the Titans are not going to be competitive. So ultimately, the Jets are going to be sitting here pretty. You can get Mike Williams. If Keenan Allen's going to be available, we don't know. But cutting Williams just put Los Angeles over the salary cap. They just got under and to be cap compliant. They still have moves to make. There's a restructure coming from Khalil Mack. That may not be enough. That may not be enough. So again, the Jets are sitting very, very pretty. Very, very pretty in this situation. Because, again, it's not about competing with these teams for free agents. It's about competing for your own division. And the Buffalo Bills have done nothing in this free agent class for me to expect them to continue their run of AFC East dominance. That defense has a lot of question marks. The Dolphins have lost a plethora of talent on the defense, and they still haven't been able to solve it. Christian Wilkins' loss is going to be felt on that defense. Big time. And the Jets have now solidified their offensive line. They have solidified their defensive line. People are going to be angry about Bryce Huff, but ultimately, you still have McDonald, you still have Jermaine Johnson, and you still have Quinton Williams. There's no reasons to panic about the defense when we have consistently seen that this coaching staff can coach up lesser talent, can get the best out of younger talent. There's no reason to panic about Bryce Huff. Absolutely none. And the one thing that I will say, because today has been a great day for the Jets, the one thing that will hurt the Jets, and it just happened, Calvin Ridley signing with the Titans directly impacts the NFL draft. Completely. By the Titans signing Ridley, they absolutely could draft a tackle at 7. Absolutely could. So that probably takes Joe Alt out of the equation. Perfectly fine. But again, as I've said for the last month and a half, Olu Fashanu is still an unbelievable prospect. I have fallen in love with Joe Alt, but that is not to say that Olu Fashanu is a bad player. They are taking a tackle at 10. And that tackle, most likely now, is probably going to be Olu Fashanu. And that's a great thing because Fashanu, if you look at his tape, he has been as dominant, if not more dominant, than most of the tackles in this class. There is no worry at all in terms of what the Jets can do at 10. Most of you guys will get angry about anything, as I learned yesterday on Jake Asman's show. You guys just want to be angry, and that's perfectly fine. But it's very hard for me to look at what the Jets have done so far and say, this is a team that's just in disarray. Awful moves, awful this, awful that. They're not overpaying for anyone. The only overpay that you could really say is Javon Kinlaw. 1 year, $7 million. What is it, 6.5 guaranteed? It's just a crazy contract on a 1-year deal. But this tells me that they have the confidence that they can get the most out of him. That's the point. So Kinlaw being overpaid is irrelevant because, again, the Jets' defensive coaching staff is elite at getting the best out of players. DJ Reed is a really great signing for the team. When he came here, no one could know he was going to be a Pro Bowl caliber corner. He was a good corner, but no one really could consider the elite play that he has put forth. Jamian Sherwood, the linebacker, the weak side linebacker, who has been completely blocked by CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams, had a terrific season last year. Terrific season. How about Jermaine Johnson? Second year in, looks like a Pro Bowl player. So to me, I'm not looking at the Jets saying, oh, there's this, there's that, there's these things to worry about. There are teams that have not made a move in free agency. The Dallas Cowboys. There are teams that have made some moves that have just been mind-bogglingly stupid. Just completely stupid. What's the stupid move that the Jets have made? What's the thing? DJ Reed, terrific. There's so many things here that have been really, really solid for the Jets. And clearly, if you look at DJ Reed's tweet, going back to the original point, if you look at his tweet, if you look at Jermaine Johnson's tweet, all of this seems like the Jets are not done yet. They are trying to get a receiver. They are trying to get other things, other players involved to help this team in the long run. I'm going through the comments here. Going through some questions. We'll try to answer them throughout the show today. Probably be on for another half hour. From Ricky, I think it means something good is coming, Tyron Smith or Mike Williams. Yep, I completely agree. I don't think it's Tyron Smith, though. And you guys have to understand something. If you're going to have a tackle and you're going to pay for a tackle, you better make sure that he's ready to start. If they draft Olu Fashanu and they sign Tyron Smith, isn't that a waste of resources? Isn't that the waste of resources that everyone was complaining about with Will McDonald? It'd make more sense to let the left tackle position go and say, let's draft Olu, let's draft Fuaga, let's draft Alt, and go from there. And again, this comment here from Joshua kind of makes it that point. What if we get Bakhtiari and Fashanu is there at 10? Is it a guarantee we pick them, or do we trade back? This is an excellent question. But again, this kind of goes back to my point of why I think the Jets aren't going to sign a left tackle anymore. Because you don't need to. You don't need to make that move. And Bakhtiari could come back and could come to the Jets and say, hey, I want to be the mentor to this organization, and whichever rookie is drafted, pick me, sign me, and I will not start, but I will give the tutelage needed to a young offensive lineman. Maybe that's the case. But if you're the Jets at 10 and Olu Fashanu is there, it makes no sense to me to trade back. Generational tackles do not come around often. And the Jets have a very unique situation in their hands where they can get a generational tackle, whether it's Fashanu or Alt at 10, whichever one falls to them. One of them will. One of them is going to. Comment here from Matt P. 2 areas of biggest need also happen to be the deepest in the draft. That hasn't moved much in free agency. No need to rush and overpay. This is my point. And I'm very, very happy. I'm very proud of you guys. Because the majority of the comments here are very simple. Yeah, this is what free agency is. You don't make the biggest moves right away. This is what the Jets should have been doing from the beginning. This is exactly what Jet fans should be hoping for. A GM that's not overpaying, not sinking assets, but still going all in. Morgan Moses' trade is an all-in move. Javon Kinlaw may be overpaid, and that might be part of the discussion. But if he is going to start alongside Quinnen Williams, then he should be paid a little much. And Quentin Jefferson not coming back shows that Kinlaw is pretty much the guy. That's not the bad thing. There's no need to rush this. There's no need to rush the Jets getting an answer at wide receiver. And again, I will say, I don't think the Jets are going to draft one at 10. I don't think it's the right move. I don't think it's the right move to trade out because you're going to get a tackle there that you don't have to spend major money on for the next 5 years. Plain and simple. 2 areas of biggest need right now are wide receiver. Right now, after the Moses trade, the 2 biggest needs for the Jets are wide receiver and safety. Those are the 2 biggest needs. And we can talk about tackle and depth on the offensive line. All of that is absolutely fair. But I look at the draft as the answer to that. They have, 8 draft picks still? Might be 7 now based on the comp pick with Baltimore. But if you have 7 draft picks, you can get 2 to 3 offensive linemen in one of the deepest classes of all time. The Jets are set up beautifully here. This trade changes everything. And it shows that this was kind of where Douglas was pushing the entire way. Furthering the point that maybe we should be patient when we judge where people are going and for how much money. Might be the case. Question here from Marvel. Do you think Tyron Smith is still in play? Do they dedicate that 10th pick to a tackle? Mentioned it before on the show. We're probably going to be talking about this a lot, guys, of course. But yeah, I don't think Tyron Smith is in play. First off, he's going to cost over $10 million. And it would just be very, very, very stupid to give a tackle that may not be willing to start week 1 that kind of money, particularly if you draft Fashanu at 10. And again, the reason why I've sort of transitioned to Fashanu is Calvin Ridley signing a 4-year, $92 million deal with the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Titans, you can expect them to want a tackle to solidify their offensive line. Callahan comes from an offensive line background. It makes a lot of sense, especially with the Ridley signing. Comment here from Antonio. We pay these average O-line big dollars, and we can't wait to cut them, leaving dead money when it comes to pay Garrett Wilson, Sauce, JJ, and Brees. Yes, I'm kind of in that boat as well for the Jets. The one thing that I'll say that I think it's getting a little too over the top in some of these conversations, dead money is irrelevant in the NFL. It's essentially become irrelevant. Because with the salary cap increasing as much as it did this year, the expectation is it's going to increase even more going into 2025. So it's not so much that the Jets shouldn't overpay for players, but if you're drafting Olu Fashanu, he's going to start week 1. He's going to be the starter week 1. But if that's the case, then why would Tyron Smith sign a $12 million deal to be the backup or the swing tackle? I can't see that happening. And it's really not good cap management either. Why are you paying someone over $10 million to not play every down? That's just my thought. From Armani, comment from him. Most of our pass rushers are there, missing Huff, but we shall get overcome. Yeah, listen, the Bryce Huff deal is great for Philadelphia. It's not the end of the world for the Jets. Philadelphia desperately needed pass rushers. They were 26th in the league in sacks. Their defense was absolutely horrific. It made my eyes bleed late in the year. At the same time, Will McDonald, that's why you draft him in the first place. That is why you take the flyer on him a year early, to prepare for that. And this isn't to say that Douglas is right to let him walk. I still think they should have signed him last year before he had his breakout, so you could make him a high-priced commodity without giving him top defensive line money. The Jets didn't do that. I thought it was a mistake. But again, there's the difference between a mistake and calling someone the worst GM of all time, or the best GM of all time, and the greatest that ever lived, or the worst that ever lived, whatever it is. The NFL world, the sports world now, lives in absolutes. And that's why I wanted to have this show. That's why I wanted to start this show, because there's always a middle ground. And with Joe Douglas, he has made some mistakes, not re-signing Huff, giving that restructure to Carl Lawson. All those things come into play. His free agent record is really, really bad. But he also does some really good things. 2022 class is one of the most historical draft classes of all time. The trade for Morgan Moses is great. The trade for Jamal Adams, the trade of Sam Darnold. These trades are unbelievable. And he has to be commended for that. So to say he's the best or to say he's the worst is just, it's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to the conversation at hand. That's my point here. Looking through the comments here. We got one from JetCast. I'm going to be on the show later today at 8 o'clock. For those of you that want to ask some questions, it's going to be on a Twitter space. Is there any chance the Jets sign a veteran left tackle and take another position at 10? Maybe drop back and collect assets they already are missing. Yeah, listen. And I'll be perfectly fine repeating myself. Not an issue. But if I'm looking at the Jets and what they want to do, they could trade back, collect assets into the second round, and do all these pretty things. But I feel that there is a slight drop-off between Talise Fuaga and Olu Fashanu. It's Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu, depending on whoever you want, depending on whoever you think is better, is perfectly fine. There's a small drop-off, and there's Fuaga, Latham as well. And then there's a bigger drop-off, and that's where your Amarius Mims, the Oklahoma kid, the Fotanu guy, that's where those guys kind of situate. They're all first-round talent, and they would probably be the top linemen in any other class. But this is the deepest draft class we've ever seen at tackle, and that's the reason why. That's the reason why you stay at 10, you draft Olu Fashanu or Joe Walt, whoever is available at 10, and then you ride off into the third round, happy with your offense, prepared to get the best player available in the third round, and just continue to hammer home the talent. That's just what it is. Looking through the comments here, a lot of Joe Walt. And yes, Joe Walt signing with Calvin Ridley, 100%, probably means that the Titans are taking a tackle with the 7th overall pick. But as I keep saying, that is okay. That's okay. Because this is the deepest tackle class ever. There's very little that Joe Douglas can do to screw that up. There's very little that you can ask for when it comes to Joe Douglas than the situation they have right now. They trade for a right tackle. Now Elijah Vera-Tucker is in his natural position at guard. You have a starting caliber left guard in John Simpson, a quality second-round pick at center. This is what it's all about. This is how you fix an offensive line. You don't overpay for some of these guys. You add in the draft and you bring in some quality veterans in free agency. You don't spend a lot, but you bring in some quality guys. Going through it. Yeah, right here, comment from Antonio. In the beginning, they had Olu rated number 1 over Alt. Then Alt was rated number 1. Now I read Farrago is rated 1. Someone will be there at 10. This is my point. Exactly my point. The Jets are coming away. The Jets will come away in the 2024 draft with the tackle that they want. This is what you should be pushing for. From Boomtown, don't package in 1% of Jake's audience in with the majority. The intelligent Jets fan understands how the process works. Listen, I will say this, and I've said this about Jet fans the entire time. I love you guys. It's absolutely a riot. Some of the comments, some of the questions are just absolutely terrific. I think JJ yesterday, for those of you that were watching the show, was incredible content. I'd ask him a question, and then he'd talk about something else. I can't remember the guy's name, but the stat guy comes in. He wants to get stats. He wants to tell everything, all the mistakes that Joe has, his poor record. And then when I ask him, well, what do you think about this move? And he's like, oh, I would like that. It's day 2. Yesterday was day 2. Today's day 3. The Jets are already better since the start of free agency. The Jets are already better, light years better than they were last season. Is Morgan Moses an upgrade over Mekhi Becton at right tackle? You better believe it. Mekhi's a natural left tackle. Moving him to the right side was always going to be difficult. And I thought he played well for those bits and pieces early in the season. But Morgan Moses is a right tackle. No brainer that this offense is better. John Simpson had a better season last year than Laken Tomlinson. This is what I'm talking about. From Antonio, I don't know if letting Huff is stupid. I just wanted to keep him. And again, this is perfectly fair for Jet fans. If you guys want to keep Bryce Huff, perfectly fine. But to say that the pass rush is stunk now or just it's going to struggle, it's completely wrong, because Jermaine Johnson should be in line for a big year, as will Quentin Williams, as will Javon Kinlaw, and as will Will McDonald. Are we going to be talking about Will McDonald as a bust next year if he gets 10 plus sacks? This is kind of what I'm talking about. Let draft picks grow. Let them develop. There's no reason to question a defensive pick that the Jets make now. There's just no reason. Every guy they have brought in has worked or is developing into a great player. Tony Adams, a very solid safety. The trade for Chuck Clark is excellent value. DJ Reed, Michael Carter, Jamie Sherwood. I just go down the list. This defense is already stacked. If they want to let Bryce Huff walk because they feel that Will McDonald will be even better, how can we question that? The only argument everyone has is, well, the Jets management hasn't given us a reason to do it. They haven't won, so why should we expect them to make the right move? It's March 13th, for those of you that don't know. You aren't winning games on March 13th. The trust should be there for this coaching staff to develop defensive talent. Will McDonald is a first-round talent. He was a first-round talent going into the draft last year. Whether we thought that he was worth the 14th overall pick or a late 20, completely different. But that's first-round talent. Bryce Huff was an undrafted player. There's the difference between that expectation. A big-time difference. Another question here from Antonio, clearly joking. What happened to the A-Rod is the GM and JD is the assistant. Yeah, listen, I don't think that's going to be safe anymore. A safe comment to make because let's be frank here. Let's be frank. Aaron Rodgers doesn't make that trade. The Joe Douglas trade, people will look at Ozzie Newsome because of the Ravens connection. You know what that trade spoke to me? The first thing I thought of was, man, that's a Howie Roseman trade if I ever saw one. That's a trade Howie Roseman makes 10 times out of 10. A pick swap for a starting Pro Bowl caliber right tackle? Are you kidding me? If I'm a Jets fan, I am skipping for joy. I'm already skipping for joy in free agency. My team has Saquon Barkley and just brought back CJ Gardner-Johnson. I'm already in a good mood. But it's hard for me to look at this and say the Jets did something wrong there. That's a steal and a half. I do want to bring up one comment because he's one of my best friends from early on in the show. Austin, if Rodgers becomes vice president candidate, does the franchise of the Jets dissolve? Yeah, again, the jokes are the jokes. Aaron Rodgers is not leaving the Jets to be the vice president of Robert Kennedy's, whatever it is, presidential candidacy, whatever it is. Whatever it ends up being, whoever it ends up being, it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. It's just not. So we can all relax on that. It's a great question. Can you send us Josh Sweat as a thank you note for Huff? I'll take another FSU guy on the Jets. It's going to be interesting because if you're the Jets, you can absolutely solidify your team with Josh Sweat. He's a great player, 10-plus sack season. A couple of years ago, always improved his sack total outside of this year, but that was more about coaching than anything else. But are the Jets going to give a third or second round pick? Because that's going to be his. That's going to be what is going to have to be given. Connie, always so fair. Thank you so much. Hopefully, we'll get you on the show in a little bit. From Tane, oh my God, is it Faria or Farina? Yeah, listen, there were a lot of things happening yesterday on Jake's show. For those of you that didn't, go watch Jake Asman's show yesterday from like 2 to 4 o'clock. Whether it was a gentleman saying that interceptions don't matter when judging quarterback play, or the Joe Douglas is the worst GM of all time because of his record, and you are what your record says you are, even though you lost your quarterback last season. That was a trip and a half, man. Or my name going from Faria to Farina. I don't know. It was just wild. Absolutely wild. For Marvel, I think people just don't know enough about Fashanu. He is very good, not that far from Alt. This is kind of my point here. I continue to push the Joe Alt train because I feel he's the best tackle in this class. But Fashanu, if he was coming out last year, is a top 3 pick. If he was coming out the year before, Fashanu was a top 3 pick. He is a terrific pass blocking tackle. Easily a generational talent. And the fact that you have 2 generational talents at the tackle position is great. This is one of the deepest draft classes ever. Just a combined total, whether it's pass rushers, receivers, tackles, offensive linemen, quarterbacks. The weakest position, really, is linebacker, which isn't really good for Philadelphia, but that's besides the point. That's my 2 cents there. Another comment from Dane. The Ridley signing makes picks 7 through 8 so murky. Think our shot at sliding back might have been killed like groundskeeper Willie. Yeah, listen. I will say that if you're the Jets and you are dissecting where picks could go, and let's go through this. So let's go through the list. We know Caleb's going 1. We think Drake May's going 2. Jaden Daniels going 3. let's say the Cardinals take Marvin Harrison at 4, and the Chargers trade with Minnesota at 5 for J.J. McCarthy. Let's assume that the Giants take Malik Neighbors, and then the Titans are kind of there. They can take Odunze and sort of solidify the receiving core to have a truly complete offense. Or they could take a tackle and improve the offensive line, which has just been atrocious the last couple of years. Both things could happen. But let's say they take an offensive lineman. Let's say they take Joe Alt at 7. Well, Atlanta's not just going to suddenly take an offensive lineman too. They are going to go defense. They have their quarterback. They could probably take a receiver. But they're not taking an offensive lineman. That offensive line is stacked. They'll probably go defense, whether it's corner or edge rusher. And then you're the Bears sitting at 9, and they're not taking an offensive lineman either. They just drafted Darnell Wright last year. There's no need to go after it, and Wright had a good year. There's no need to over-panic with that kind of move. So even then, if you do the math and you take out Joe Walt, Olu Fashanu is there without having to make a trade. Talise Fuaga is there without having to make a trade. And I think even if, playing devil's advocate, even if Fashanu and Alt go, I think they're still taking Fuaga. Because by all intents and purposes, from what I hear, Joe Douglas still loves Fuaga. There's nothing to worry about there. That you're getting an offensive lineman that will be a staple on your unit for over a decade. Over a decade. It's easy peasy. Going through some of the comments here. We're going to be on for just a couple more minutes, guys. Here from John B. Also, John B., great name. I just finished watching out of Banks a couple weeks ago. Great show. But John B., Asman's favorite wide receiver, Ridley, taking the high road. Listen, even with Calvin Ridley going to the Titans, did you want Joe Douglas to spend 4 years, $92 million, that kind of contract for a receiver like Ridley? That's a massive overpay, and everyone here would be upset over that. Oh, what does that mean for Garrett Wilson's long-term future? What does that mean for Sauce Gardner? All those questions would have been had. Let's stop pretending that this wasn't an overpay. And again, let's not pretend that there's going to be receivers available. The one thing that I keep pushing, and I keep pushing everyone, the market right now will not be the same in a month. The trade market now will not be the same in a month. Denver has stated they do not want to trade Courtland Sutton, and that's all well and good. But is that answer going to be the case after the draft? We don't know that. We don't know that. Mike Williams just got released today. He wasn't available for the Jets on day 1 of free agency. He's available now. Keenan Allen could be another player that's available. All these things, you have to be patient. The moves are going to be made to improve the roster. The Jets have consistently stated that they are going to add another wide receiver. It's going to be done. Whether it's in free agency, whether it's a guy that comes up on the open market, all of these things remain to be seen. But it's foolish to get worked up over a situation like this where we don't even know who's going to be available. We don't even know who's going to be available. People were complaining on Jake's show yesterday. This is what I loved about it. We need a receiver. We need a receiver. What are we going to do without a receiver? We need offensive linemen. We need all this. Those people aren't complaining today because Morgan Moses has been traded. And it's a great deal. You gave up nothing. You gave up nothing for a starting right tackle. It's a great deal. And now everyone's saying, well, we need a receiver, and Calvin Ridley's gone, and what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Mike Williams has just been released. Keenan Allen could be next. If the Chargers want to improve their roster at all, They have to make more cap space up. There's going to be another release there, whether it's Bosa or Allen. There's going to be a move there. So if you're the Jets, you could sign Mike Williams. You could sign Keenan Allen. You could bring in Hollywood Brown. How about Tyler Boyd? There is so many moves the Jets can make. And they have the cap space to make it. The one thing that people should be frustrated about, or would be frustrated about, in my opinion, is if they had no cap space and didn't want to make a move for anybody. Kind of like what the Cowboys are in. The Cowboys don't have a lot of cap space, have 3 major contracts to negotiate, and have a boatload of positions to answer for. Cowboys fans are livid at the situation their team is in right now. Absolutely livid. The Jets are sitting pretty, knowing full well that the offensive line has been solidified. The defensive line has been solidified. The backup quarterback position has been solidified. The entire day, we haven't even talked about Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor is an excellent backup for this offense. Every position that they have needed so far, they have found a solution. The only two really that they haven't is receiver and left tackle. But as I keep saying, that's going to be solved in the draft. Ultimately, and if you're looking at it from the totality of free agency right now, if you're grading the Jets free agent moves anything less than a B minus, if you don't like Simpson, if you don't like Kinlaw, all those different things, if you are grading the Jets offseason and you're grading it anything less than a B minus, you are angry at nobody. You're just angry to be angry. First day of free agency rolled around. I thought the Jets were at a C+. I liked the moves. I didn't think they were all massive. But then they traded for Morgan Moses, a starting Pro Bowl caliber right tackle. And now this has absolutely moved up to a B, in my opinion. They need to solidify the receiving core. They need another running back, another safety. But the safety market is still available. The running back market is still available. And oh yeah, plenty of receivers still available. They are perfectly set up to be as aggressive or just as helpful as they want to be for the 2024 roster. There is, what move are you angry about? What move could people be angry about? The fact that you got John Simpson over Michael Onwenu? Even though Michael Onwenu is costing far more than John Simpson? The fact that you traded a Pro Bowl caliber right tackle for pennies on the dollar? You brought in a backup quarterback that has consistently won when he has needed to? We want to talk about his injury concerns and all that. What do I keep telling you guys about backup quarterbacks? Backup quarterbacks should not be asked to play a full season. They are only good to roll through a couple of games a year. And if that's the judgment of Tyrod Taylor, they knocked that signing out of the park. Absolutely knocked it out of the park. Tyrod's not going to put the ball in danger like Jameis Winston is. Interceptions don't matter. I still can't believe it. Between that and JJ, I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. Have a nice comment here from Bray and Sweet. If we stay healthy, we can have an average line. We should sign Becton as a swing tackle. This is an interesting point. And I don't necessarily disagree with this. If you bring back Mekhi Becton on a 1-year prove-it deal to be the swing tackle for the Jets, and you still draft Olu Fashanu, you now have a layer of backups at tackle. God forbid Moses or Fashanu go down, and you can move Max Mitchell inside. Remember, you still have Wes Schweitzer. So you could move Mitchell to guard, Schweitzer to guard, and you have 2 backup tackles, and there is your 9 ready to go. That's an interesting comment, Braden. And I'm not entirely opposed to it. I think that's a good one. Because again, it's not about oh, we need to make the biggest signing possible at every given moment. That's not the case. Sometimes the smallest moves create the biggest matchup nightmares for other teams. It really does. Philadelphia in 2017 signed Nick Foles to a 2-year contract worth something of like $10 million. And everyone said, well, Foles isn't going to see the field because Carson Wentz clearly is the quarterback of the future. They bring in Alshon Jeffrey. They bring in all these little pieces. And Nick Foles became the biggest signing of that entire offseason. Think about that. You guys want to be angry? You guys want to be upset over moves or not moves, whatever the hell it is. This has been a very good start to free agency for Joe Douglas and the Jets. They have shown they are all in without having to spend a premium at positions that they would have probably been sunk in. Consider this. They signed Robert Hunt to the contract that he got for the Panthers. 5 years, $100 million deal. Let's say they give that deal to Hunt, any other player you want, and they bring him in. What happens if he doesn't work out? Now you're sunk with that cost for 5 years. John Simpson, 2 years, $6-7 million. Easy. Easy, easy, easy. Got to get a couple more questions here. John Gunning with a question, Nick. Would you try to sign Bakhtiari's insurance to a tackle that the Jets would probably draft at 10? Bakhtiari, Becton, whatever it is, if the Jets sign another tackle, he's probably not starting week 1. And he shouldn't start week 1. I know people are going to want to say to have patience, but with a left tackle, a generational left tackle like Fashanu and Alt are, you don't start them on the bench. You let them take their lickings early. It's the one, it's really the difference at the quarterback position. Quarterbacks need nurturing. They need time to get up to speed in the National Football League. Tackles, like the best example I have is Jonathan Ogden. Ogden gets picked up by Baltimore. He's the left tackle from day one, and he is considered one of the greatest left tackles of all time. I'm not putting Fashanu and Alt at Ogden's level, but they are generational tackles. You do not put a generational player in such an important season on the bench. You play him right away, and you trust your scouting department knows who to draft. We'll get the final question here from Antonio. If you re-sign Becton on a prove-it deal as a swing tackle and everything goes as plans, he would be sitting on the bench all season. What's he proving? He has to go to where he'll play and prove it. Yeah, that's all very well and good. It's just, what's his market going to be? That's my question. What's the market for Mekhi Becton? If Mekhi gets a 5-year deal elsewhere, that's great. What team's going to give an injury-prone tackle that kind of money? I don't know. There's a chance that he might be waiting until after the draft to sign somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he signs as I'm saying something, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he waits until after the draft. Wait to see which teams are going to be in need of a tackle. That's just my 2 cents. But again, if I'm giving a grade to the Jets' off-season plan so far, it's a solid B. It really is. You don't have to spend money on a starting quarterback. You need to spend on a wide receiver. If you bring in Mike Williams, it goes up to a B+. What moves do we want Douglas to make that he already hasn't made? He has solidified the offensive line depth in a major way without giving up massive assets of money or draft capital. This is what a competent, solid GM does. Now the question is, can he finish it up? Can he get the deals done that he needs to not only provide depth on the offensive line, but depth at receiver, running back, and safety? But to think that he can't do it 3 days into free agency, it's very wrong. Let these guys cook. Be patient. The games aren't going to be won now. You want to be angry? Go out for a walk and recognize that the games aren't played yet. So it's about improving the team with the assets available. And right now, the Jets have certainly done so. Certainly done so. That's going to be all for me today, guys. Appreciate you guys for jumping on. We had over 600 viewers today on the regular call, so this is awesome. We're going to try to jump on a show on Friday. We're going to continue our free agency recap, going through some of the biggest signings. But appreciate all of you guys for jumping on. I'll see you all Friday, and have a good rest of your day.